IUIC, the biggest Hebrew illiterate camp, really uses Leviticus 12 to say circumcision by the manner of Moses in Acts 15 is talking about sacrifices, and their members are so indoctrinated into illiteracy that they actually could read Leviticus 12 and believe this stupidity. If this ain't the stupidest shit I wish I would have never heard. Check this out. And I'll be right back with you shortly to destroy this dumbness. IUIC, swoop, that's purple shitty turd gang. Shit said.
And certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved.
All right, so right there in verse 1, it says, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved. We need more understanding of that. It says, and certain men which came down from Judea, which men were dwelling in Judea. Come up to the mic. Yeah, come up to the mic.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Your mind. It was the Jews, the southern kingdom dwelling in Judea.
Good, exactly, the southern kingdom. Okay, good. Have a seat. It says, and taught the brethren, and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved. Brothers, do we still have to be circumcised in our flesh?
Yes, sir.
We do?
Yes, sir.
Everybody in agreement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we all still have to be circumcised, what is this talking about when it says, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses? Leviticus chapter 12. All right. Before we go to Leviticus chapter 12, who was the covenant of circumcision given to? Abraham. Circumcision, that first covenant was given to Abraham. Now, what was not a part of that first covenant of circumcision? Animal sacrifice. Animal sacrifice was not a part of the covenant of circumcision when it was given to Abraham initially. That didn't come until later by the hand of Moses. All right, so let's go to Leviticus chapter 12 to prove that.
Leviticus chapter 12, verse 2.
Read.
Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman have conceived seed.
So if a woman gets pregnant
and born a man child,
and she has a boy, read.
Then she shall be unclean 7 days.
She's unclean for 7 days, read.
According to the days of the separation, for her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised.
So he shall be circumcised, the same circumcision that the Lord gave to Abraham. But there's going to be something added to it. Read.
Verse 4. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 33 days.
So 33 days plus 7 days is how many days? 40 days. So the sister is unclean for 40 days. She can't go back and have sex with her husband again until 40 days after that baby is born. Read.
She shall touch no hollow thing.
Read.
Nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled.
That's when the 40 days is fulfilled. Read.
But if she bear a maid child,
a girl,
then she shall be unclean 2 weeks.
2 weeks is 14 days. Read.
As in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 60.
60 is 60.
And 6 days.
66 days plus 14 days makes how many days? 80 days. If a woman has a female, a girl child, that woman is unclean. She can't have sex with her husband for 80 days. Almost 3 months. Brothers, hold on tight. Keep reading.
Verse 6. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled.
The 80 days.
For a son.
No, I'm sorry. So for a son, that'll be 40 days.
For a son or a daughter.
Or for a daughter, that'll be 80 days.
She shall bring a lamb.
A what?
A lamb.
Read.
Of the first year for a burnt offering. And a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. Onto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Onto the priest.
So what does that consider? A sacrifice. So that's what it means to be circumcised after the manner of Moses. So whenever you see that verbiage in the New Testament by Paul,
so
what is that talking
get
about?
Circumcised too, man.
Animal sacrifice. Exactly right. Let's go back to Acts chapter 15.
Acts chapter 15.
All right, now check this out. Leviticus 12, 2 through 8. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman have conceived and born a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of her separation. For her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Notice, no sacrifice done there. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 3 and 30 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary. Now I mean the sanctuary for the sacrifice, until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled, for the son or for a daughter too, you see that, right? She shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest. She shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her. Notice, for her, and not for the circumcision of her son. And she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is the law for her that hath borne a male or a female. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtle or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. All right, now that I just irrefutably prove that the part of the doctrine about circumcision being for sacrifices, as they claim, like they claim every other outward ordinance of the law to be, that I'll destroy in later videos, which makes their followers no more than dumb, deaf, and blind bats being led into a ditch. You know what I mean? I'll now address another lie they tried to get off about, do we have to be circumcised? But before I go there, just in case anybody confuses that, they might be saying that Paul is addressing ethnic Gentiles in his epistles. And even if that's your belief, I'm going to show you that they don't believe they are the same as me. You heard? Like, so if we both believe they Israelites and they claim that we supposed to be keeping the law of circumcision and all that, you feel me? Like, why would Paul be so adamant against them being circumcised, and when he want them to get circumcised so they could keep the Passover, if we supposed to be still keeping that? And you know what I mean, you can't eat of the Passover without that. And circumcision, although first given to Abraham, is still part of that law that they try to tell us what we got to keep. It's still a ordinance to that law. All right, but let me show y'all real quick that that we agree on who the Gentiles is.
To heaven.
How did they get in all these nations? We just read it. Christ just prophesied, you're going to be led away captive in all nations, and Jerusalem is going to be trodden down of the Gentiles, the Roman Empire. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 12:2. Now we're going to stay in the New Testament. Let's keep it in the New Testament.
1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 2. Ye know that ye were Gentiles.
Ye was what?
That ye were Gentiles.
The word "were" means you was something, now you're something else. You was a Gentile. The word prophesied unto you. Now you come back to your nationality. Same way we do on the streets. We talk to those Gentile brothers and sisters that think they're African American. They think they're black. They think they're just Negro. They think they're just trap boys. No, we bring them back to their remembrance. No, you're not a nobody. You're not a Gentile. You're an Israelite, right, according to God, and you got to come back to God's laws. Read it again.
Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols,
And our people are in idolatry right now. That's it.
even as ye were led.
Even as you were led. We've all been led into idolatry. Now we're beginning to wake up. No, we're not Gentiles. We are the Israelites that have been living as Gentiles. James 1:1. The book of James,
chapter 1.
All right, now, not that I'm trying to veer or deviate too much off of the subject about even with me being in agreement with the basis of the part of their doctrine about who the Gentiles were that Paul was addressing. So, being that I don't want to go too off subject, I won't at this time get on the few technicalities even found off in the way that they broke that down. But instead, I'll just deal with the basis in which we agree, just to keep anyone from saying that maybe they are saying that Hebrews still have to be circumcised, but not ethnic Gentiles, but just dealing with the fact that them saying needing to be circumcised in the New Testament is still another lie they teach, and a lie that I'm about to address right here. 1 Corinthians 7:18-20. Is any man called being circumcised? Let him not become uncircumcised. Is any called in uncircumcision? Let him not be circumcised. Circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing, but the keeping of the commandments of God. These commandments of God no longer being Moses's, but Christ, unless Paul is saying he was lying a verse before, being that circumcision is a part of the law of Moses. But then he says, let every man abide in the same calling wherein he was called, which is the same point that he's making here. Galatians 3:2-6. This only would I learn of you. Receive ye the Spirit by works of the law or by the hearing of faith? Are ye so foolish, having begun in the Spirit? Are ye now made perfect by the flesh? Have ye suffered so many things in vain, if it be yet in vain? He therefore that ministereth to you the Spirit and worketh miracles among you, doeth he it by works of the law or by the hearing of faith? Even as Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him for righteousness. And with that being the same point he was making here, Romans 4:9-16. Cometh this blessedness then upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness. How was it then reckoned? When he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision? Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of faith, which he had yet being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also, and the father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of the faith of our father Abraham, which he had being yet uncircumcised. Which is the same point he had made in the foregoing verses that I had read from Galatians, since circumcision is considered a work of the law. For the promise that he should be the higher of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. For if they which are of the law be hires, faith is made void, and the promise made of none effect, because the law worketh wrath. For where no law is, there is no transgression. Therefore it is of faith, that it might be by grace, to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, not to that only which is of the law, but to that also which is of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. And again, Paul being against circumcision of the flesh. Galatians 6:12-15. As many as desire to make a fair shew in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Christ. For neither they themselves who are circumcised keep the law, but desire to have you circumcised, that they may glory in your flesh. But God forbid that I shall glory, save in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom the world is crucified unto me, and I unto the world. For in Christ Jesus neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but a new creature. And here's Paul again, Galatians 5:11 through 12. And I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I suffer persecution? Then is the offense of the cross cease? I would they were even cut off, which troubled you. Where in these translations it says cut off, meant that he even went as far to say that he wished that they would go as far as to castrate and emasculate themselves. Galatians 5:12 AMP. I wish that those who are troubling you by teaching that circumcision is necessary for salvation would even go all the way and castrate themselves. Galatians 5:12 CEV. I wish everyone who is upsetting you would not only get circumcised, but would cut off much more. Galatians 5:12 ESV. I wish those who unsettle you would emasculate themselves. And here's how him and Titus felt about Titus getting circumcised and why Titus didn't get circumcised. Galatians 2:3 through 4. But neither Titus, who was with me being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised, and that because of false brethren unawares brought in, who came in privily to spy out our liberty which we have in Christ Jesus, that they may bring us into bondage. And for all those that say, but why did he circumcise Timothy if he meant what he said here? Galatians 5:1 through 6. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Behold, I, Paul, say unto you, that if ye be circumcised, Christ shall profit you nothing. For I testify again to every man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to do the whole law. Christ is become of no effect unto you. Whosoever of you are justified by the law. Notice he said that, I mean, justified by the law. If you got that in your conscience for what I'm about to, hold on, just keep that in mind. Ye are fallen from grace, for we through the Spirit wait for the hope of righteousness by faith. For in Jesus Christ neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love. All right, now for what I'm about to explain, like from what I was just saying, in that, you feel me? This is why he's circumcised, so it's not a contradiction. You feel me? Because Paul is circumcised, so he's not saying that about himself. He's just about to, it's the reason Timothy would have had fallen from grace is because on their conscience wasn't of the necessity to be circumcised for the keeping of the law, but instead for the furthering of the gospel. And as Paul explains in 1 Corinthians 9:19 through 23, and how for the gospel's sake and the furthering of it, becoming all things to all men to win over a few to Christ, and when around the Jews, becoming as a Jew as a diplomatic approach in such a volatile environment as you see here. Acts 16:1 through 3. Then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman which was a Jewess and believed, but his father was a Greek, which was well reported of by the brethren that were at Lystra and Iconium. Him will Paul have to go forth with him, and took and circumcised him because of the Jews which were in those quarters, for they knew all that his father was a Greek. That's why they circumcised him, man. However, as I earlier said, falling from grace wouldn't apply, in that situation, you feel me? Because they wasn't doing it to further, I mean, because they were doing it to further the gospel and not having it on their conscience that they were doing it as a requirement of the law for salvation. I mean, in which the same rule will apply dealing with the conscience. I mean, as is elaborated on in 1 Corinthians 8, in conjunction with the principle of becoming weak for the weak, as 1 Corinthians 9:22. In this case, the weak will be referring to the Jews, where it is here written, 1 Corinthians 8:4-13. As concerning, therefore, the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is none other but one God. For though there be that are called gods, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be gods many and lords many, but to us there is but one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Lord Christ, by whom are all things, and we by him. Howbeit, there is not in every man that knowledge, for some with conscience of the idol, and to this hour eat it as a thing offered unto an idol, and their conscience being weak is defiled. But meat condemneth us not to God, for neither if we eat are we the better, neither if we eat not are we the worse. But take heed lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak. For if any man see thee which has knowledge sit at meat in the idol's temple, shall not the conscience of him which is weak be emboldened to eat those things which are offered to idols? And through thy knowledge shall the weak brother perish, for whom Christ died. But when ye sin so against the brethren, and wound their weak conscience, ye sin against Christ. Wherefore, if meat make my brother to offend, I will eat no flesh while the word standeth, lest I make my brother to offend. And yeah, so that's my little breakdown and debunking of Iuic'S and other dummy camp doctrines of the law of circumcision. But before I sign off, I like to give all the glory to the Father for this dispensation of the Spirit of truth on me through his grace. Shalom, Israel. And once again, nailing the law to the cross.